Pulling up on the Big Ticket Morning Show this morning. Always a honor and a privilege to be speaking to our Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock. Good morning, sir.
My dear brother, Deacon Big Tigger.
How are you, man? I'm good. How are you today?
I'm going to pray that into reality.
Okay.
Deacon Big Tigger.
That is not a bad arc of something to aspire to.
There we go. That's right.
Senator, tell me a little bit about this FAA reauthorization. There's some things that I read about it that seem like common sense that we're happy that's really in play now. Everyone heard about the fact that you being able to be reimbursed for your flights for certain things. That everyone's really excited about that part. But what are some other key things involved in this FAA reauthorization?
Absolutely. And let me start where you just ended off there. All of us know the frustration of having delayed flights. And as someone who flies literally every week, I know a little something about that. And what we did was we codified into law refunds for consumers. This is about consumer protection. It's one of the things that we got done in the FAA. That's just the big bill we do every 5 years to provide consumer protection, to address safety, a whole range of other issues in the aviation space. But we've codified into law that if the delay for a domestic flight is 3 hours, you get your money back. And we have put language in the bill to make sure that the airline has to make it clear about how to do that. They have to have buttons, for example, on the website. You can clearly see where to get your refund. And 6 hours for an international flight. I've been focused on things like workforce development. My bill, the Airways Act, language from that bill was included in the final bill, which will ensure that in this moment where we are seeing a huge shortage in our workforce, where we don't have enough pilots, we don't have enough mechanical engineers, a whole range of jobs in the aviation space, middle-class jobs that give people an opportunity. There is so little diversity in a lot of these jobs in the aviation space. So I have provisions in the bill that will soon be signed by President Biden into law that ensures that young people, people of color, women, folks who want to be pilots, who want to be aviation mechanics and other jobs, that they will have a clear path to getting there. And I'm inspired by young people. I met this young man. His name was Ezekiel Andrews. And this brother was brilliant. And literally very committed to becoming a pilot. When I met him, he'd been at this for 10 years. He'd spent $100,000 out of his own pocket, and he still had a ways to go. Now, the academic criteria for becoming a pilot should be high, necessarily high. We all want to be safe.
Thanks.
But that's not the barrier that he was encountering. He's able to do the work, but the financial barriers and the path for getting there are just too difficult for so many young people. I think that God creates brilliance and ability on all sides of town and all area codes. And so we tried to create that kind of opportunity in the bill, and proud to do that. Let me also say that every year, often there is this effort by our state legislature to take over the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport.
Yeah, what is that about?
To take it from the city of Atlanta. Well, I've got a few ideas, but I won't get into that. But I mean, just use your imagination. We've seen this terrible game being played time and time again. And this is the legacy of Maynard Jackson.
Right.
And the kind of, Hartsfield-Jackson is the world's busiest and most efficient airport. And yet, every time we look up, our state legislature is trying to take it over. So I have language in the bill that will be signed into law by President Biden that will make it very difficult, certainly harder for that to happen. Proud to do that. Proud to put some safety provisions in the bill. It's all about making air travel safer, more consumer friendly, and over the long run, sustainable. Senator Ossoff and I also have language in the bill to bolster research in hydrogen and other technologies that over time, if we're serious about addressing carbon in our atmosphere, we've got to deal with it in the aviation space. So this is why I do this job. This is why I love it.
Amen.
It's the Lord's work, just in a different place.
I want to thank you. I have a friend who just completed his pilot stuff. He's a first officer now. Shout out my brother Mel, the Traveler. So I see it actually in action right now. Shout out to my brother Mel. So he's now a first officer. He flies his own little planes, but he wants to be the big pilot, and he's on his way. Awesome
Good
indeed.
stuff.
Talking to Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock this morning. A lot of excitement in Atlanta right now. I talked to our President Joe Biden the other day as he prepares for this Morehouse commencement. How excited are you about it?
Listen, wherever great debates are happening about the serious issues that are confronting us, Morehouse is a place for that to happen. That's the legacy of Morehouse. And so I can tell you that as an alum, I could not be more proud and thrilled that the President of the United States is coming to deliver the commencement address for these young men of whom we are very proud. Let's be really clear that the day is about them. It's their day. And Morehouse, I can tell you as an alum, has been a place where we valued conversation. So the President is going to deliver his message. The Morehouse community, I think, should hear from him, and he should hear from the Morehouse community. And we always do that in a way that's representative of the Morehouse spirit, the spirit of Martin Luther King Jr., to be sure, Benjamin Elijah Mays, lesser known names like Mordecai Wyatt Johnson, the great Maynard Jackson, for that matter. And I'm excited about the work that I've been able to do in partnership with the President over the last few years. He understands the value of HBCUs, which is why we've invested a record $7 billion, you heard it right, with a B, $7 billion into HBCUs just over the last couple of years. And I've been careful to make sure that there was language put in some of the bills that we've passed, like the Science and CHIPS bill, to make sure that HBCUs that have so often been marginalized when it comes to research and development dollars get their fair share. And there I was also at another great HBCU. We had this Democratic caucus, and it was at Howard University. And as I sat there and it became my time as a senator to ask the president a question, I looked up and realized I was at Howard University, another great 1867 university. Morehouse and Howard founded the same year. Morehouse is greater, but Howard's a great school. And look, I got to do that for my bison brothers
as you
and sisters
should.
out there. It's all in love. But listen, it was at that meeting that I pushed the president, reminded him of his promise to do student debt relief. There were a lot of folks saying he shouldn't do it. I laid out all the reasons why I thought he should. And so I think I had a little something to do with the fact that we've done now $160 billion, again with a B, $160 billion of student debt cancellation. I can tell you, Tigger, as I move around our community and people wonder, well, what did he do? What has happened as a result of us showing up to vote? I then asked the folks who were asking that question if either they or someone they know, anybody they know, has gotten student debt cancellation. And when I go into rooms in our community, hands go up all over the building. I think sometimes things happen, and because people are busy living their workaday lives, I understand it. They don't often know who did it or why it happened, because you know, this president has the dignity not to actually sign the check. He didn't put his name on it. It's the American people's money.
I see what you did there.
I'm proud. I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do, and still we have to continue to center the marginalized, the poor, the left out, the rejected, and that includes Palestinian sisters and brothers in Gaza. We are concerned about them. I'm concerned about families in Israel who have endured hostage taking of seniors and children, such brutality on October 7th, such unacceptable levels of carnage since then. I think both of those things can be true. And as a pastor, I have just tried to center the humanity of both Israeli mothers and fathers and Palestinian mothers and fathers who, like all of us parents, want to be able to put our children to bed at night, offer bedtime prayers, and have them awaken to a world at peace with itself that embraces all of our children. That is the moral work that's in front of us. And Morehouse has always been a place where that conversation is taking place.
Amen. We're talking to Senator Reverend Warnock right now about Joe Biden doing his commencement speech this weekend at Morehouse. Reverend, I get you out of here on this. It's been announced that Atlanta and CNN, and particularly in Atlanta, is where the first presidential debate will happen. How appropriate is it that the first debate happens in the great state of Georgia, which is pivotal yet again in this election?
That's right. It's only right. Think about what happened in 2020. Georgia saved the whole country. who could have known that when President Biden was elected that we'd still be waiting to see who would have control over the Senate? And who could have imagined that we'd need 2 seats? And what are the odds that they'd come from the same state?
Amen.
Well, Georgia, in one fell swoop, a state in the old Confederacy, elected its first African-American senator and its first Jewish senator to the United States Senate in one fell swoop. If John Ossoff and I had not been elected, all of her credentials and achievements notwithstanding, because she certainly deserved it, Ketanji Brown Jackson never would have been brought up to be confirmed to the Supreme Court. You think Mitch McConnell would have brought her up?
No, sir.
No. Elections matter, but be very clear. There's no such thing as not voting. Not to vote is to vote. And I think that in this dangerous moment in our democracy, when the democracy itself is at stake, and I have to say that for all of its flaws, I believe in democracy. I believe that democracy is the political enactment of a spiritual idea that all of us have within us, a spark of the divine. So we ought to have a voice, which means a vote in the direction of the country and our destiny within it. And so to stay home is a sin. And we need people to show up, let your voice be heard, even as you argue and push us closer towards our ideals.
Well, Senator Warnock, we appreciate your time. And as usual, I thank you for your great dedication and hard work you do for the constituents here in the great state of Georgia, in Atlanta in particular. And it's always great to talk to you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Deeply honored. Folks, I'm talking to Deacon Tigger.
Listen, from your mouth to God's ears. Let's make it happen. Thank you, Senator Warnock. Love you too.
Keep safe.